Greetings to everybody. This is the Esports Central Podcast, and I'd just love to show this beer right here because, that man pumping iron right now, he's going to be working for this company, aren't you, Glenn?
I'm just getting in those games, getting in reps for esports.
Well, again, I'll say welcome to Esports Central Podcast. This is episode 43 for the 23rd of May. We thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about all things international and local South African esports. And with me, as always, I got a whole crew of people, including a guy who's sitting very still. He's our guest. It's Snare. How you doing, Snare?
Hello. I've been mastering this technique. You're not going to see me move the entire time through, but if you see me even move an inch, then you please let me know, tweet at me, let me know I need to remaster my training, go back to the mountains.
That is some impressive ventriloquism. I mean, I can't see the lips moving at all.
Not even a blink.
Wow, jeez. Uncanny. So, Glenn, we saw you pumping iron there. Did that help? Do you have one arm that's bigger than the other?
No, look, one's arm bigger than the other. Now, because this is a family-friendly podcast. And also, you'll notice my background is quite different from usual. I am at Axe's house because my internet is garbage because of a certain ISP whose name we won't mention. Axe, thank you for having me stalking your house for a bit.
He was sitting next to me, but then we decided within sort of arm's reach, there's going to be some kind of actual physical fight. Yeah. So now he's in the other room.
And also Axe gave me a beer. So also he's a friendly guy, surprisingly. He knew.
Surprisingly. Kaameel, what would you do if you were here and you were close to Glenn?
I just got to... Firstly, I would decline the invitation and retire from the podcast. But secondly, I just want to make that PG-13 shout out. We have men drinking beers, men pumping their iron on stream. It's disgusting. I don't know how Christopher Sagenhaus signs off on this shit.
Yep, Esports Central editor and part-time hobbit. Probably not going to be happy with this.
Half-time hobbit.
So, Nadia, what do you make of all this testosterone flying around?
I don't know. I was just thinking, since every week I'm guilty of doing this in my chair whenever I start talking, I should have done like a spin completely around and go, "Hello, my little friends,"
and then gotten stuck in your headphone cable. Yes. Yeah, well, that's
toxic
the cast of characters. Yeah, we'll see.
Also,
We'll see about that.
We're gonna wine actually. So she's being very classy, which is. Yeah, don't hide it, Nadia.
Don't hide it.
Come on.
We're all there.
I'll embrace myself.
There it is.
It's been a long life.
Snare is drinking so slowly we actually can't even see him having a drink.
He's reached the level of mastery where he just takes in alcohol through his skin.
I love it.
Wow, so we
to evaporate.
We've done what we always do on the ESC podcast. We just gone all sorts of places in the first couple minutes, but we do need to actually go over to esports because we do have a little bit of a time limit, so we do need to move on. And of course, you can catch us on YouTube. We're on Spotify, on iTunes, and also on Podbean, and then the esportscentral.co.za website. So definitely follow on your platform of choice and follow along. We appreciate you guys listening, and we appreciate the crazy people who are here since episode 1. I mean, 43. That's a lot.
That is far too many.
Wow.
And here we are.
The only person who's here with me since the beginning is Glenn. Everybody else has abandoned me.
That's actually true. Hey, Holden's gone, Beatles gone.
Audio only people can't see, but I'm doing dances right now. So
it either says something
Scarlett
about
is gone.
or it says something about Glenn.
Definitely Axe. Axe is the leader, so 100%.
They even moved in together now, so it could be like the Kaameel Glenn relationship is over. He's cheating on me with Axtremes. Shit, dude.
No, Kaameel. Okay, I'll come to you next week. It's fine. I'll just rotate. I'll
be Cape Town that week.
Funny thing, I'm actually going to Cape Town as well, so it's perfect.
Oh, snap. Getting chased out.
Sit next to each other. That's great. So I think we'll start off with some international esports. Kaameel, you got something for us?
Okay, before I talk about esports, I need to put a statement out there to the public. Before this podcast started, I was stifled. I asked them if I could do my favorite thing, moan about Dota and Valve, and they're like, you have a timer, 4.5 minutes, and shut the fuck up and move on. I'm heartbroken. I feel not accepted. To quote Nadia, she even said, because I asked, am I allowed to, guys? And she's like, on your own YouTube channels. Heartbreaking. Heartbreaking.
You've added a lot of words into things that were said. Like, this new words that you put in there. But, you know, creative script writing like the Game of Thrones writers. Good job.
Wow,
No spoilers,
we
please. No
said
spoilers,
we're
no
not going to talk
spoilers.
about that on the podcast
No
anymore.
spoilers.
Let's talk about the subdivision in the greatest game, Dota Auto Chess. Okay, so Dota Auto Chess, there have been rumors about people wanting to buy this game forever because it is a phenomenon so great it even made us think Dota is not a dead game anymore. So the first couple of rumors went out that Tencent wanted to buy it, and then now Valve released an official statement saying that they contacted the studio Drodo and wanted to partner with them themselves. But Drodo said no, surprisingly. So either Valve made a really shit offer, or Drodo are smart enough to know that in China, in the mobile market, which if they there individually and do a good job, they could make mad bank. So I don't know what you guys think about that. Is Valve lowballing here, or are Drodo being smart, trying to own the Chinese market independently? Because I think, like, if this game, we know about the Diablo story, when mobile games pop off in the Chinese market, nobody rivals that in terms of monetization.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I think mobile gaming is definitely something that a lot of people hate to admit is like huge, and not just necessarily in China, but just I mean, there's actually rumors now. Apparently, League of Legends is also. Oh no, not rumors. I think actually it's quite official that League of Legends is also heading to mobile now. So it took a long time, but they've also understood mobile is huge. So I think like the idea of like, you know, wanting to tackle the Chinese market is, you know, quite a big appeal for them. But more than that, and it's something obviously we've mentioned in the past, is Valve is not particularly great at looking after its IP or, you know, the games under its roster. I mean, for years, CSGO has complained about being like sort of, you know, the less loved sibling compared to sort of Dota. Yet, you know, despite Valve being really shitty at looking after it, they've still managed to become like, you know, one of the biggest esports in the world. So I think there's like a lot of reason. Obviously, it's all speculation on our side, really, as to why they chose, you know, to go or not to go with them. But yeah, I think Valve doesn't make a great case for themselves looking after games, in particular.
I think one thing I forgot to mention also in the article is that although they're parting ways, the Valve is fully helping in the integration or migration of the game for Drodo, but they'll also be making their own version of Dota chess in the game client as well. So we'll still have like official Dota chess in Dota, and then there'll be auto chess. But
that's with the blessing of the creator, hey? I mean, as far as I read, they said the creator, they actually gave Valve permission to go ahead.
Which is awesome. When I read this, it sounded like a super PMA story. Usually you hear like corporates trying to fuck this guy over and like, you know, that kind of stuff. And now it just seems like a wholesome situation. Like, I'm happy about something Valve did.
But what's the difference between the two? Is it like something that will be like cross-platform, or I wasn't listening to half of what you said?
I'm just glad you didn't fall off to sleep at this point.
It's been a long day.
Well, I mean, so what she says though is something I was thinking as well. Like, how do these two things coexist next to each other? Because are Drodo allowed to use like the game assets from Dota 2? Like, can it actually be Dota game assets now that it's splitting off? Or
so, from my understanding, which is very limited, I don't think they can. So they're gonna have to do their own thing, where Dota will own the assets and stuff, like. So they'll get to have like official hero names and shit, which I don't think Auto Chess will have, because in the mobile app. Sorry, what did you say?
It'll be like Pro Evolution and FIFA, basically.
Basically.
No.
But also, I don't think
that kills the game, though. I mean, Pro Evolution Soccer, you have to get called what's it like? It was like Old North, like Old Blue North or English North to like represent Tottenham or something. I was just like, no, like
that's like the no-name brand of.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, firstly, let's not hate on no-name. Pick and Pay and Woodies have some dope no-name brand products. Okay, no-name brand for life. Yes, thank you to my mother for teaching me the ways. So let's not hate on no-name, but I guess in gaming we do.
Okay, let's say off-brand. So like between, you know, Chocos and then Spar's chocolate cereal.
Like Pizza Hut, for example.
It loses its value. Or what
you said you were going to bring up Pizza Hut, you bastard.
It's like, for example, Pizza Hut being, you know, the equivalent of like a high-quality brand.
Actually,
off brands like Domino's and Romans and Debonair's. The Pizza Hut obviously is the ideal pizza for the you know, the high-quality premium person. Surely.
Okay,
I didn't get stuck on that fight, but actually want to agree with Glenn regarding the Pizza Hut thing and regarding the no-name brand thing, because this has nothing to do with esports. But when I stayed in PE back in the day, there was this place called Pizza Guys who used to be a Pizza Hut, and now they're a Pizza Hut again, which is weird. I don't know if they're affiliated with anybody, but the pizza was fantastic. Why
Thank
can't you
you.
get a deep dish a deep dish pizza in Cape Town? Nowhere.
Okay, I
Anyways.
feel like I need to set the record straight on this fucking thing because Glenn got roasted on his Twitter thread. Even I
I
voted
don't know
no,
if
and I kind
roasted
of
is
like
the right
it.
word.
I
I
see
don't think
what
it's
What is your stats at the end of the poll, Glenn? 70,
68%
You got fucked.
calling
Okay.
Pizza Hut trash and 32%.
I've never eaten Pizza Hut in South Africa, but in other countries, Singapore mainly, it's phenomenal. I don't know if the standard holds up here or not, but Domino's, I saw people talking about Domino's, utterly garbage. I think for trashy fast food pizza, Debonair's is better than Domino's, and I'll stand by that.
Sure,
and Pizza
that's
Hut
a hot
on
take.
Domino's is terrible. They put like
Sure.
shaker can of spicing on top. Nah, dog. Not
It's like-
not my pizza.
fake
We can-
cheese flavor or something.
I'm just way too fancy for this. I haven't had any of it. I just eat from like a local place, and I go to Andisio sometimes, maybe Kolkata.
Yeah, because you don't have petrol stations here, so you can't drive far because it literally is the middle of nowhere. I mean, there's nothing here but barren
So-
land.
I think what our
Okay,
overall
there is something
point
to
here.
be-
Yeah, sorry. Go for it, Snare.
I was going to say that there's one thing to be thought about this, right? Is that this is unlikely to be the last time that we see this kind of situation playing out.
Oh, he's going Dota. Okay.
Oh, no, not just in terms of Dota. I'm just thinking in terms of esports in general, right? Especially with things like, say, with Fortnite or Minecraft that are starting to become more platforms than they are individual IPs. It does seem to me that there's going to come a point where you can find someone's going to make some mini game inside Fortnite that's going to blow up by itself, apart from Fortnite as itself as a game, that might end up this exact situation where you have auto Fortnite. I don't know why you'd want to get more dumb, but the possibility in the future.
Gotta build that wall.
That's hard take everywhere, but on this podcast, that's like an A+ statement.
Actually, I just had this. I don't know. You probably saw a light bulb go on for a second. I just saw GOG Galaxy, a tweet about that on Twitter, obviously because it's a tweet. But it looks to be that it's going to be a client where it goes across clients and bring games together. So
Okay.
that's also something big and exciting that's going to come up. But I literally just saw the tweet and I was like, what?
So
Okay.
a competitor to all the other things that works with all the other things like Steam.
Yeah,
and
so
Epic
it's like-
Store and
Yeah,
Uplay and
basically
whatever.
cover all of it. So
That's interesting.
that is.
Yeah, we definitely talk about that in future when we know a bit more about it. So the overall thing here with Dota chess and pizza, which we got abruptly cut off there with Snare actually talking about the real shit, but pizza might be the real shit too. I don't know, but I think the no name versus the brand name, the Pizza Hut versus the Domino's, the Dota chess versus the Chinese Dota chess. I guess the thing is people are always going to stick with the name that they know until the other thing actually proves to be as good or better. So, in this sort of case, obviously if you're in China, you kind of will have no choice. But elsewhere, if you can choose, you think the Valve one's probably going to win out in the rest of the world, surely.
I'm
But
actually not
if
sure.
you oh, sorry, go.
Okay, who wants to go? Yeah, let Snare go first.
All right. I'm just gonna say. There was a point where we all thought that MOBAs could not survive outside of being incorporated inside Warcraft, and that proved not to be the case. Where eventually the thing takes over, it becomes its own thing. It becomes its own little ecosystem apart from the host body initially. So I think even though might be the case that right now the official one is the one that stands head and shoulders above the rest. As time goes on, I don't think it stays the case.
Okay.
Mm.
See what happens with that. I think we're going to need to move on actually because we've got a lot of topics to get through. So let's hit
right.
on the next one. You got something else on Dota you wanted to talk about there, Kaameel?
Oh, I could talk about Dota the whole podcast, but I know I'm limited for Nadia's
knows.
sleep time at least. Okay, so the next thing, obviously, we praise Valve with how they dealt with well. Okay, let me just shut up. Next thing is, I'm gonna quote. I don't know if you want to bring up the tweets here by Godzo. I'm just gonna quote them word for word.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay,
It's up.
nice. Okay, play 11 games of Dota in a row with tens of thousands of viewers, full one game short of qualifying to the major against an amazing team who is going to TI, walk away with 0, get asked to play qualifiers again in a couple of days. Tier 2, Tier 3 problems in a nutshell. So this has been a discussion that's been going on for eons now in the Dota world, or in the Reddit terms. And it's a really important discussion I've been waiting to talk about in the podcast for a long time, but now I'm going to condense what I have to say and summarize it. And that's, it's been a shit show at the moment for tier 2 and tier 3 teams. I don't know if Snare can also comment here that it's like nobody gets enough money to play. I mean, there was a pro player, I don't know if you saw the Reddit post, guys, with El Sash, who was like, who formerly played at like Summit, and he was the tier 1.5 player, played at a few events, and he's like, half of his team has fucking quit. He doesn't know how long he'll be able to sustain himself, like putting bread on the table, and he doesn't know if this is sustainable anymore. He'd like to play more Dota, but there just isn't the Dota available to play for the tier 2, tier 3 guys.
Yeah, it's crazy top heavy. Like this random situation where if you're not one of like 10 teams on the planet, so it's a super small pool, 50 players in the rest of the world except for China. If we include China, that pool probably increases to like, excuse me, at best, because the Chinese scene is even more top heavy than the rest of the world. There's maybe 85 to 100 people on planet Earth right now that are actually making a sustainable living playing Dota consistently. That can't happen. That just can't happen. It's a recipe for the fact that it's even gone this long, honestly, is kind of miraculous. Like it felt like between 2010 to 2015, it was somewhat acceptable because you could say, yo guys, the money isn't there throughout the scene itself. And now you know the money is there. It's just being concentrated in very small pools of tournaments. There's like 11 DPC events per year. Between those events, there's I'd say $20+ million of prize money flowing around. And yet you tell me only 100 people can eat in that environment? No, it's just not sustainable. Can't work.
I mean, the TI prize pool this year is going to be expected to hit 30 million. That's 25% of what Valve gets from crowd-funded money. So that's sitting like $150 million. And it's just like, well, no, we can't support you guys. The money isn't there. But the money fucking is there, right?
But I mean, on that point as well, I mean, it's kind of the discussion we always have, and we have that sort of back and forth between, you know, Valve's sort of approach to things with the open circuit idea, right? And again, you're finding a lot of the problems coming through again with CSGO, where people are now complaining that, you know, the top teams aren't going to every single event. They're kind of picking and choosing what they want to play in. And then it's like, you know, for example, the Astralis now, a lot of people are attacking the legacy they're going to leave behind because they're going for like the shittier format tournaments as opposed to going for like the big majors that are supposed to solidify them as the best team in the world and create that Astralis era that was supposed to be there. That's now under fire. Again, open circuit plan. Now you're looking again with Dota, where you kind of have the idea of TI. It was something that a lot of people in League of Legends, and I mentioned again, obviously because there's always that comparison between how Riot and Valve approach their esports, where people are saying in League of Legends, we are one of the biggest games in the world. If we crowdfunded, we could easily blow the records away. And Riot went, it's not sustainable. To have one massive tournament where you become a multimillionaire overnight and then no one else gets any money. So what happens with Riot games in the leagues? So yes, there's no like these like headline catching, you know, prize pools or things like that. But the point is that most people it's a more diversified amount of prize pool or money being thrown around. And that's really what that argument comes down to. Like, yes, open circuit's more exciting because the best of the best compete at every tournament and they do their best because there's so much money up for grabs. But on the other hand, in terms of actually a sustainable ecosystem, you know, that open circuit format is there's a lot of criticisms that are starting to come up now in both CSGO and Dota.
It's actually interesting if you mention CSGO because the one thing that it does have is tier 2 and 3 players do earn salaries and can make money. You could be playing in Mountain Dew League, which is where ATK, the old Bravado and Denial guys are playing in America. A lot of those teams are salaried. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. And, you know, in CS, weirdly, MDL is the one league behind Pro League, which is supposed to be the best. Because Pro League is so good, the top half of the field in Pro League are tier 1. The second half are basically like tier 2, and that sort of filters down into MDL. So it's not like clearly delineated by which division you play in. For instance, probably the 5th best team in the world right now, ENCE, doesn't even play in any of those leagues. They just go to LANs and wreck people. They won the last Pro Series. So CSGO is kind of an odd one because there does seem like there's a willingness from orgs to pay these players, but what you hear from orgs the whole time is that they can't make any money in CSGO. So, I mean, those two things don't seem to somehow be compatible, but that's a Valve game, and guys are getting paid for being in tier 2. You are getting paid if you're a Chinese team or a Mongolian team or an Australian team or something like that. Whereas in Dota, it sounds like it's an endemic problem that unless you like one of the best in the world, you got no chance of getting paid, right?
Yeah, how much are players like actually adding onto their income? Because I know like in Overwatch, you've got a lot of players being also, streamers, which adds to their income. Some of them stream for their own teams. Or is it just, I mean, I guess that's unrealistic. Like you have to
Very
basically
rare.
do 2 jobs.
There's only the top streamers can really make anything from Dota. I mean, there's some really good streamers. I don't know, like Fabi's stream, he's like super entertaining, but he doesn't even get that many views. It's not sustainable for Dota people to stream and get income that way. Also, like the Glenn's League of Legends example, I read an article the other day that says the average salary for LCS player or one of the league's players is like 300k a year. In Dota, I mean, I was researching this the other day. The amount of teams that went through the 5 or 4 cycles of major minors this year is 49, right? So everybody thought like, oh, tier 2 teams are going to come in, get a chance in this new major minor system. But the case is it's not been like that. I mean, even for the tier 1.5 teams, it's been super rough. And almost every minor has had a tier 1 team playing in it because of the way the qualifier is set up where Europe only gets 3 slots and there's like 4 legitimately good teams in Europe. And I think the problems also stem from that, like Scant was saying on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, when everything is so heavy onto TI, it's like nothing else matters, right? So if you're a top player in Dota, you don't give a fuck if your org pays you. You just go to TI and wreck and you blow out all that proportions of money just from 1 year.
You can literally be a team that wins. You can win every event, every single event leading up to TI, and then the team that wins TI would have made more money than you that year.
Crazy.
Because actually, just when you now mentioned like a Dota player's salary, I just actually like quickly just had to have a squiz, because in Overwatch, I know obviously Blizzard has their fingers down, holding the good man down, but it's between $50,000 to $150,000 a year.
That's quite different to LCS, eh? Wow.
Like no wonder everybody is streaming.
But then, you look at that, and if you look at esports earnings, for instance, you can see some of the names there. It's mostly Dota and CSGO names on the top earnings.
But I mean, obviously with Dota, that makes sense because, again, you win TI. And that's
exactly where I'm going with
it. It's the top 5. I mean, it's for me, the thing is that I've always looked at the crowdfunding aspect of it. Like, it's amazing. I mean, the first time it happened was so cool, and it just broke records, and it just showed how passionate people were to just give money in support of something they cared about, which was the Dota esports scene. But the thing is, no, but I mean, to be fair, this year is already projected to completely blow away last year's TI, so it's going to keep going. I mean, I don't question the sustainability of the model in terms of it keep growing year on year out. I just think that, again, to the point is, TI is just so heavily weighted that like it just almost destroys the sustainability of like the rest of the ecosystem within Dota esports, and that's the issue for me in terms of that model of TI being so heavily weighted into financially that like, and I mean obviously there's a whole thing with the point system, right? I mean that's what Valve's answer to that was to kind of bring in the point system to make the rest of the qualifiers or the rest of the events actually mean something for teams, because obviously if you qualify with enough points, that kind of helps you in terms of your getting into TI. But again, it's just so top heavy that it's just like it makes me wonder, like, is it actually sustainable in the long run in terms of can you actually foster tier 2, tier 3 teams within Dota in the current scene?
I just got the perfect analogy. TI in the Dota scene is the equivalent of Ronaldo in Real Madrid. It's like when you're busy taking care of Ronaldo, things look great and it looks amazing, but you're actually ignoring how many problems you have everywhere else. And then the moment that Ronaldo starts performing for you or it's out, you're like, oh God, actually we're fucked. We actually haven't done anything to address all our issues.
I love that Snare knows to bring in sports into analogies without us even saying anything. Like we always just bring in sports.
I think what we've actually discovered here is that Snare's better at analogies than Kaameel, and he also does Dota. So I mean, I don't know Kaameel, but I think you might be out.
I might be out of a job. Feels bad, man.
So guys, question on this topic is there anything Valve can do? What can they do to sort the situation out?
Yes. Yeah, I linked the simple... If you can open that tweet at the top of the doc I linked by Gareth Cast, it's a simple solution. Well, I'm not going to call it a solution, but here's one thing they could try to do. You take... Yeah, I'm just going to read this tweet again. Every time I see the 30 million TI9 prize pool goal, my mind goes 2% of 80 million TI, 120 million minus the TI plus DPC prize pools. 48 weekly cups for 6 regions, 5,000 prize pools, and or 1% of 80 million, 11 monthly tournaments for 6 regions, 12 prize pools. That's 3%. That's 2.4 million of the 80 million just spread the wealth. There was also suggestions that, Valve are not going to create a whole new system because it is Valve. They want the minimal effort thing to do, right? And what if they just put prize money down for the qualifiers? You combine major and minor qualifiers, so it's a big thing. You have teams compete like legitimately and fucking slog their hearts out, which they're doing anyway. And then you give the top 6 or some prize move. Like, there's no reason they don't do it already, in my opinion.
The reason is they don't care.
You know what? You just fucking stop sexually harassing your employees, Mr. Riot Boy.
Yo.
That was so personal.
It's like he works for Riot, like he's the owner of Riot.
I am Mr. Riot Boy, so that's I'm putting on my business card.
That's so Mr. Riot Boy.
Then there's a riot.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think the solution you found there, Kaameel, is probably where they need to go, and I think in a number of other esports, a similar sort of thing applies. But again, companies always go profit margin. We want to make as much money as possible, and that's the point of a company in the first place, which people in esports, esports fans tend to forget. It's like it's not because out of the goodness of the heart that they do what they do. It's not because they love you. Fuck you. We want your money. That's all that they want, actually.
Oh yeah.
I really love the game.
I can't believe you say Lord Gamer doesn't have my best interest at heart and doesn't slave endlessly to give me the best hats on offer.
He personally designs them. He does the CAD drawings himself. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but Gavin doesn't love you. He loves money.
Bad.
I mean, you've seen the meme, of course. A Steam sale.
Where's my wallet? Can't find it because it's gone to Gavin.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. So I think we've got to move on. Let's go on to the next topic. Hey, I get to talk about something for a bit. Yay!
Yeah, that's hype.
Okay, fine. Okay, I better talk about this thing here. So, here's a tweet from our favorite esports journalist. Well, he's not really a journalist anymore, but he tweets a lot, so we'll go there. And he follows me, so I'm freaking famous. Just saying. Just saying. But, Rod Breslau, Slasher, or as Kaameel calls him, Slasher.
That's his official name on the podcast, it seems. If you remember the memes, you would have known that.
Yep, Slasher. That was one of the craziest things. Anyway, let's read his tweets. We got this $100,000 DreamHack CSGO event that's specifically catered towards women. It's a female-only tournament. And on Reddit, a lot of guys were having a go about the whole thing and complaining. You can see here, damn, where can I get 100K for being in main? Main is a couple levels below the top if we're talking ESEA. A lot of people seem to think of this as a form of sexism by the fact that it's a female-only tournament, which is, a little odd. I guess for some mental gymnastics, you could probably pull off trying to say that, but I'm not so sure. The whole thing overall, I mean, I'm not going to go into everything that he says here, but one of his tweets later in the thread, all you oppressed male gamers whining about girls on the internet are doing it wrong. The more women playing games, esports and streaming, the better chance you'll have of talking to one for the first time in your life.
I saw that tweet and I loved it. I was like, that is saucy.
But next level play, he doesn't know I'm a MGTOW. I'm going my own way. I don't even want to talk to a woman, man. I'm like, next level.
No, look, I mean, it's something obviously we've spoken about. We've spoken on in the past already in terms of women-only tournaments. And obviously, I mean, we've had our own share of locally, with the Valkyrie League, where again, locally guys will be like, what? Oh my word, why are women getting tournaments and why are they getting prize pools and like us guys are better and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, the same sort of reaction. And then again, to the point, we were saying, like, there's a lot of reasons why women don't participate in sort of the esports scene. And a lot of it is not really necessarily to do with the skills part of it, although, again, based on the previous episode where we spoke about, we listened to that YouTube video, that YouTube video, where she explains that a lot of the games are designed towards men more than anything. But I think, based on that, what we were saying is, like, female-only tournaments help to bring in women in a safer environment that isn't as hostile or isn't as sexist, which again is something that Nadia has gone on length about talking, that it's a very hostile environment for women in esports. So having women-only tournaments is a great way to get them in and get them excited and give them like a space to actually breathe and grow. That then can result in having the ideal that we all want of mixed gender tournaments.
And I also think what people tend to forget is when there is a female, like I'm not a fan of it, Like I've said that extensively, and I'm pretty sure every single Goal gamer loves me because of that in South Africa. Anyways, but it's just people have to keep in mind, just because this is assigning X amount of prize money towards a female-only tournament, it doesn't mean that that money would have necessarily wow, words. Anyways, it's a lot of S's there. Yeah.
That's the line.
would have necessarily gone towards a mixed gender or whatever tournament. It's specifically raised and put towards that because they, for example, maybe want to bring in females, bring in those gamers, and ultimately have more people playing the game, where that market would maybe have been excluded because some stuff like this wouldn't be happening. But that tends to just go over people's heads as well.
I think what people forget, and they probably can't forget this because they don't know this in the first place, having not been in marketing. But I mean, Glenn could probably attest to this too. But what every brand's trying to do through esports is marketing. That's what they're there for. They don't love you. They don't love your community. They don't love your game. They're happy for you to die in a ditch as long as they get the last of your money. That's really what it is. And I know that sounds horrible, but all of what these companies are doing, maybe it's a guy who's one of the marketing execs who likes that game and that's why they're involved in it, but they're involved in it to get exposure for their brand and to get people buying their product. They want to see a sales return from it. So getting involved with the female CSGO tournament, if you're a sponsor, you're doing that because you're wanting to appeal to female gamers. You're wanting to appeal to the people who will watch that stream, the people who are involved in that scene. And that money isn't, as Nadia says, necessarily going to go towards a regular tournament, because that's a different demographic, that's a different crowd. Maybe it doesn't align with the brand's values. Maybe the sponsor is doing like a line of female-inspired gaming peripherals. I know Razer, for instance, do that. So, I mean, how are you going to promote that line of product if it's just a regular tournament? Because then, you're sort of 40% of the viewers, if you're lucky, are female. So then you're not really getting a marketing return. But the bottom line is they're spending their marketing money there because that's how they see that they're going to get money back. So, and the tournament wouldn't exist if the sponsor wasn't willing to pay for it, which is the other thing people seem to forget. They're not doing this just because they feel like it. It's the sponsor says there's a possibility for this to reap a return for us. The tournament organizer wants to do something in that space. Maybe they have altruistic motives as a tournament organizer, as DreamHack. They want to grow the female scene. Maybe there is that. But ultimately, somebody's willing to pay for it, so they're going to make the tournament and they're going to broadcast it. That's it.
Yeah, it's basic. Like me, I just think of it as is the word untapped market that can be reached, and if you can just bring them into the fold, then voila.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point that you both made as well is so important, is that was money that was never going to go towards male-oriented tournaments, or whatever you want to call it. Like, that was money that was, because a lot of guys get angry, like, that's money we should get because whatever reason they want. But it's like, regardless of that was money that was never going to go to you anyways. You know what I mean? And I think, not that it should even be needed as a justification for female-only tournaments, but no one's losing money from this. Like, top-tier teams in CSGO are not, like, Astralis is not going to lose their bottom line or get, like, a low bottom because it's, like, a female-only tournament. Like, that money's already guaranteed to go towards.
They're already doing that, though. They're just not showing up at tournaments,
And there's the source.
Yeah, that's like called the tournament Blast Pro series. They won't bother showing up.
Well, people are calling them Blast Astralis now because they only go to those tournaments.
Have you seen someone change the logo actually to bring it in? But to the point, like, that's money that that was never going to go towards premium or high end, or high end's the wrong word, I guess, but you know what I mean? That money wasn't going to get lost, wasn't going to get spent on men tournaments anyways. So when people have that argument of like, that's money we should have gotten, it's like, no. That was money that would have gone into a different marketing scheme to target a different demographic that is not you. And I think that's my biggest issue with esports. Or not my biggest.
I know the biggest issue is coming up, right? But
well, let's get there. But I just think that a lot of people feel like whenever they're not targeted, and I don't think it's a gaming thing specific or an esports thing, I think it's just in general. If you're not the target market, people instantly get upset. Like, why was I not targeted for this? Like,
Star Wars.
Because there are so many other people in the world aside from you and your friends. Like, there are other people that also have money that companies want. And I get so frustrated. People go like, this doesn't appeal to me. fuck you, I hate this. For example, Diablo fans and the Diablo Mobile came out. They're like, what? Diablo Mobile? Fuck you, you guys are sold out. Like, no, they're making money and there are other people that wanted it that got excited.
Let's pull out a local example. In esports was the announcements of Rush on, I think it was on Friday.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to bring it up or anything, but now I'm going to bring it up because there's a whole bunch of people like, oh, why is Fortnite on mobile? And it's like,
it's like almost like the Vodacom telecoms company would want to promote their brand.
The sponsor would want to promote the thing that they do, which is
being a
mobile network.
What I find the most ironic whenever I see these kind of complaints coming up, right, or the people talking the most shit about this kind of situation, it's like, okay, so like all you guys have mentioned, the kind of complaints you have if you're complaining about these things shows that you fundamentally misunderstand how markets work, how marketing works, how branding works. You don't understand economics, actually, right?
Yeah.
But this is most likely going to be the first guy, right? If I go into this dude's bio, it's almost 90% of the time it's a dude. The first thing I'm going to see is there's going to be free markets, rational thinker, all about some clean economics. You're talking about blockchain.
Crypto enthusiast.
Then you ask yourself, you're like, okay, so you purport yourself to be a market enthusiast, and yet simultaneously you're going to be hating on, if they just tell you that, hey, there's a possibility of a woman beating another man in a game, or actually just women playing games without us being involved, worst thing ever. Nah, it's almost like the issue isn't with the marketing strategy, and the issue isn't with the return on investment. It's just, I feel like there's another problem here, but I don't know what it is. I'm not 100% sure.
So just quickly coming back to the whole Rush and Fortnite thing, I don't actually have a problem with people who play Fortnite on PC or console. That's great, and you can keep competing on it, and you can keep competing in your online tournaments, and there are many tournaments. Every tournament provider, I think with the exception of Metal State, has done Fortnite this year. So, I mean, there was an exclusive event for it at Randy's to show as well. We had stuff with ATK doing it. So
Vado Festival as well. Like, there's been so many fucking events.
So I understand you're upset that it's not part of this event, but not every esport can be at every event. And I think Anthrax was saying it. The guy from at the top of the tree for Metal State actually was replying in the thread, also saying it. It's just you can't have everything at every tournament. So sorry that you're upset. Number one, you're not understanding the marketing that Vodacom are trying to do by doing mobile. I mean, and number two, sorry, you win some, you lose some. Call of Duty isn't there either. Sorry.
Yeah. Mobile is so accessible, especially in a country like South Africa.
Agreed.
Where, we always come back to, PC gaming is crap expensive. I have to do an upgrade this year. Well, I don't have to, but I want to. But anyways.
It's a need, not a want. It's a need.
Anyway, it's happening. But it's expensive, and it's something that you need to, especially if you're still a kid and you're not earning money and you are asking your parents to do this, it's a lot easier for a parent to just give. I mean, a kid has a cell phone anyways, and nowadays smartphones are so great. I mean, play Fortnite and you get that, this massive little market that can just go and take part. They can take part in the tournaments. They can play casually. There was that nice little mall mobile
the
Fortnite
Samsung
thing they had as well.
The Samsung launch, yeah.
And I mean, it's great. Let them do it. I will not. I don't play on a cell phone. I mean, Candy Crush, does that count?
Yes. Candy Crush Esports coming to you soon.
Yeah, from a toilet near you.
That's a great slogan for a tournament. I'm stealing that. Thank you. I'm starting a new tournament. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The toilet bowl.
Okay, Esports Central presenting the new Candy Crush Esports tournament. We've got it.
That's why you're in marketing and I'm not. I'm just a player. But yeah, so I think it's fantastic.
We've spoken about it in the past. We've spoken in the past about saying mobile gaming, it's not taken seriously, and that's to the detriment of people because mobile gaming is huge, and not just in South Africa, and given the context and the socioeconomic situation or the landscape of South Africa, but everybody has a cell phone, so it just makes sense that mobile gaming and specifically mobile esports can be huge. Apple took a big bet on it when they actually launched their gaming software called Metal, and it was one of the earliest times. It was one of the early cell phone makers that actually decided we want to take gaming seriously on cell phones. And now you look at the quality of games that are available on Apples, it's incredible. The graphics wise and all of those things. Sure, we have a lot of negative sentiment towards mobile gaming, the fact that it's all about taking your money. the actual
Play
game
to it.
design, the paywalls, the time walls, all of those things. So yes, there are those issues with mobile gaming for sure, and we're not going to disregard those at all. I mean, I am the first to complain about them, but to pretend that mobile esports cannot be or have a significant impact on esports in general is just really delusional. So, for example, to have like Fortnite mobile is huge. Again, like having League of Legends going, we need to go to mobile. PUBG going, we need to go to mobile. Like Diablo even saying we need to, like, everyone understands that mobile is a massive market. And in terms of, for people to get upset by going, there's mobile esports in our country. Like, firstly, I don't know if you know this, but South Africa has like really little, like very fucking little money happening in esports here locally. So for Vodacom to go, we're going to put money into South African esports, even if it's mobile. That is great for everybody. That is a good thing. So for you to bitch about it.
The other aspect on that that's also interesting to me is if you look at it, Vodacom for you is the mobile only part of their business. It's got nothing to do with fiber. It's even a separate business unit. So it's literally, I think it's only for you is only prepaid as well, as far as I know. So
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I mean, that's a very specific brand, but they're still sponsoring CSGO and Dota and Hearthstone and StarCraft, and you're like, they're getting no return on that shit for their brand at all. So they're still doing that, and then they're doing the thing that actually is mobile. So I mean, if they really just wanted to like completely go in and just try to promote their product, they wouldn't be doing any of it at all. So, kudos to NAG for getting, them to actually sponsor those other tournaments. Because I think probably if they're listening to this podcast, they might be going like, why are we sponsoring those other tournaments?
I mean, there's also the other positive benefit, right? Where people aren't thinking about this. If you have a tournament that's just about, hopefully we have a situation where we can fill out a stadium for Fortnite, right? If you can do that, think of all the things you can do with an entire 2 days with no teenagers on the streets. Man, things will be incredible.
Snare, you just fit so perfectly into this podcast, really.
I'm packing my bags already, Glenn. Don't worry.
Kaameel, I feel like you can step up your game.
Pack your bags and board the Indian Express out of here, Kaameel.
Oh, there it is.
Dude, bringing back the old memes.
No, actually, it's just on point. That's the hard segue into the next topic.
Yeah, I think we're going to move on to the next topic.
That idea of like public, winning the public war, like, whose side does the public go with, and what Tifu's doing right now is really putting himself against Faze, and then trying to sort of spin it in the sense of, spin it makes it sound like it's allegedly makes it seem like he wants to make Faze out to be the bad person. And obviously when you have the public persona on your side, especially in a place like esports where gaming, public perception is so volatile and so important, that can really hurt your earnings, and it can actually genuinely affect your profit. And I think Thorin actually made this tweet, and obviously a lot of people share the same sentiment, where you sort of look at Optic as well. So I mean, Faze and Optic have been two of the biggest gaming organizations in terms of esports and in terms of reach and following. I mean, these two have been battling since before esports was a real thing, the real thing, and Call of Duty is one of the big games that they were both really involved in, but it goes far beyond that. And so for Faze to be in this predicament, like in this really dangerous PR space where they might come out of it, looking better because they can actually prove that actually he was lying and none of it is true and this was not as malicious as it seems. But on the other side, you also get now Optic, who are now about to get bought out by Immortals. Sorry, Optic's parent company is about to get bought out by Immortals. And Immortals, again, is an org that's also kind of recently come up. And the point is really that, like, esports it's so fickle. So Optic was, one of the huge teams. They got a massive team. I mean, they had a team, Call of Duty. They had a spot in League of Legends. Then Immortals actually never got that spot. Immortals actually got rejected by Riot Games. And so now with Immortals sort of buying Optic out, you might lose the Optic brand. And so it just kind of goes back. And I mean, you can even look at Echo Fox as well, where Rick Fox kind of, their founder actually called them out. And there was this huge PR scandal, around the racism of, that one of the investors that, again, we've spoken about before. And it just got, and then they also got threatened by Riot Games that they were going to get kicked out, or they could get kicked out, or face being kicked out of the League of Legends and the LCS if they don't rectify the situation. And I think between Faze, Optic, and, Echo Fox to a degree, it just shows how volatile esports can really be. And I think that's why Faze is really being so careful about how they approach this, because I think they understand, being in the game as long as they have, that it can fall apart very, very quickly. And whether that's fair or not fair, it's up for debate. But when you look at how Optics might actually just lose its brand name because we don't know if Immortals is going to stick with the Optic name or more than likely keep, create their own or make it fall under their name because they want to grow their brand. It's a scary time.
So two things I can mention there with Faze. What's interesting is in Counter-Strike, they were the big money org that was buying the most expensive players for a long time. And
I remember
kind
that.
of what's been coming out in the last sort of year or so, suddenly that behavior stopped. It's handbrake up, throw out the anchor. That doesn't happen anymore. Now the players that are there, you're stuck with them, and anybody they pick up is somebody who's cheap or is a free agent. They're not going to pay the $1 million buyout fee anymore. So I wonder if that maybe speaks to where Faze is at as an org right now, because it used to be money kind of thing, and now it's different. So I can see why, again, allegedly, and I'm speculating, it may be that they need to be careful in this situation. The Optic situation is interesting as well, because that's one of the OG names. It's, Hex, the owner of Optic. He's one of the guys who's been around forever. It's the biggest Call of Duty org. Faze also comes from Call of Duty as well. And if that potentially goes away, that's quite a thing, because Hector actually sold his shares, 51% of his company to Infinite Esports, and then they bought some more, and he's been making videos and blogs and stuff. Meanwhile, these guys are busy selling the company out from underneath them, which is kind of crazy one. So on Twitter, he's been saying he's trying to figure out how to get his org back, basically, because if it does go to Immortals was an org that was very similar to Optic. One guy who started it, Noah Winston, and it ended up being a success story. But Immortals has had multiple rounds of VC money, and I think it's about $100 million now that's gone into Immortals, and they've had failure after failure in different games. Obviously, the Overwatch League is where it has worked out, but Noah Winston's actually left. So now it's just the corporate giant. There's not a guy there anymore going, I'm like you, we're similar, we started this thing, and we built it. No, that guy's gone. So now the monster's coming for you. And ironically, when you're the green wall, Immortals is green too. So it's the green monster trying to eat the green wall at the moment.
But you had such a good point, and I think in the past, esports was this thing where it was one person, passion and love of the game, and through that, created this giant that became, you look at, for example, looking obviously from my knowledge, like League of Legends. TSM, Reginald started TSM. He was the lead mid lane. He grew the brand. He grew the team at an early stage. It's one of the OG brands of OG teams of League of Legends. Luckily for him, he's still there, and he still has a very controlling interest in the team. But then you look at CLG, for example, where Hotshot was, again, the guy that built up the org from and by himself, built the brand, made it one of the OGs of League of Legends. And then he just kind of sold it off. He just used VC money, and now he's not even he's not an active part of the org anymore. And I think we're kind of starting to see this phase of esports where those name brands that were built out of passion and love have to compete with everybody else, and everybody's getting VC money. And that's kind of the money you can't find in your backyard. You can't ask friends to raise that kind of money. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the kind of competition you'd be playing with. And if you want to be the top of the game and you want to buy the best players and have the best salaries and be competitive in the market, you can't afford to just do it with your own marketing, how much revenue you get out of a sponsorship. You need VC money. And I think we're starting to see that shift now. And one of the negatives of esports growing to this level that it is now, where you've sold your company off to VC, but you don't have a controlling interest anymore. But we don't get those family-loving stories anymore.
The other side of it, of course, is if you're one of the OGs who's been doing it for 15 years, don't you want to get paid? I think a lot of these guys are just cashing out because they're like, you know what? Maybe it all goes away again because we don't know. I remember venture capitalists, it's speculation. We don't know if esports is going to be a sustainable thing for the next 20 years or if it might crash or whatever. So if you've been toiling away for 15 years or 10 years or however long it might be, you could be like Jason Lake from Complexity, who sold to I think it was the Dallas Cowboys. He sold a whole bunch of shares to Dallas Cowboys, and you look at him and go, well, he's been in it since the late 90s. That's crazy. Basically scraping together the pennies to send teams to CGS and Counter-Strike in 2003 and stuff, and now he can get paid. I would fucking take it every day of the week. I'll just take that money, bro. If you've been working that hard, passion can take you a very long way in this, and that's why we all do it essentially. But you do need to get paid at some point. Kaameel and Snare also know about it. Casting's fun. We're passionate about it, but we like getting paid.
For sure. And isn't this what everybody wants, right? Everybody talks about the Overwatch League popping off and the LA Lakers buying a slot and shit in there. Well, that's what happens when the Lakers comes knocking at your door. You're not going to say no because they have means that you don't have. So this is, if you want esports to progress to be that big, massive thing and not Lord Gaben patting you on the head, then that's what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think we need to move on actually pretty swiftly. We've had some interesting topics, so we stuck around on them for quite long. We need to go, guys. We need to move on. So we spoke a little bit of local esports, but let's go full on into South Africa. So Glenn.
Right. So talking about esports blowing up and being big, obviously South Africa as well is trying to make its name in esports. And I think one of the biggest issues, I mean, there's a lot of issues that we can obviously, and we've touched on in a lot of times in previous episodes around South African esports. But I think one of the things that always comes through or comes out quite often is sort of the attitude of the community. And one of the biggest issues is definitely racism. And we've spoken about sexism in the local community as well in previous episodes. But this one specifically is just talking around racism. And so, I mean, by the time this podcast comes out, an article house sort of interviews this person, but basically, long story short, I don't even want to dive too much into the backstory because it's not the most important part. But a Dota player by the name Chad sort of they were
ACG Simpson. Must I give the backstory of?
Well, I mean, yeah, you can go into it and just look. I mean, like, I don't actually want to give him that much actually spotlight. To be honest with you, I just think the big things that kind of there were allegations, credible evidence that showed him doing a lot of racial slurs after Dota matches, and I mean, nigger was thrown in and kaffin, like those kind of words were thrown out, and I mean, there's credible evidence that we've seen ourselves that kind of has been circulating through the Dota scene, and obviously he was rightfully called out about those kind of that kind of behavior, so he tweeted there was a series of tweets that he made. Basically saying, my anger gets the heat of me sometimes in ranked Dota, and I say, worse things that come to mind, but it's not an excuse for racism. But he said, if I'm going to get banned, so be it. But his excuse was, I just wanted to piss off the people that pissed me off. And I was kind of like, okay, that doesn't actually explain anything at all. And then he sort of called out sort of Muzzy, and Muzzy's also been few times in sort of the Dota scene, but the point is basically his explanation for things was, I'm sorry, but I was just doing it to piss off other people because they pissed me off. That's why I was being racist. But I'm sorry.
So
but I also did it to
I'm
piss
actually
off.
reading some of these screenshots of some of these tweets, and dude, my toes are curling up at this shit.
No, for sure. And I mean, it's then that read for themselves a spotlight. But I think for me the issue is, and I called them out about it as kind of like. And I called it out, and I, in that sense, also called out the scene. I was just like, this is such a shit tier excuse to go, I was angry, and that's why I was reacting that way. And then he ended up deleting those tweets anyways, but I still obviously posted that screenshot because I was like, that doesn't go away. And then, like I said, there'll be an article that, by Chris House, where he interviewed the guy that'll come out, where he actually asked him a few questions around, that incident and his general behavior. And I will say this in his defense, he does seem quite sorry about it and does own up to the fact that what he said was, inexcusable, and he can't really be easily forgiven. And to that, I do, I say, cool, well done. But my bigger issue is, this is part of the scene. This is like local esports. One of the guys from Mikasi actually spoke, I shared a video in a local CSGO match on a local server, where the guy, again, racial slurs are going off and people are laughing about it or not standing up to it or not doing anything. And my issue is, like, this is not it's not a localized issue. It's not an outlier. This is the norm. I had stopped playing CSGO because it was what I was facing all the time. And I just thought, like, why am I doing this? There's no point. Like, it's not enjoyable for me to have to constantly experience racial issues. So it's not an outlier in local esports, South African esports. And for me, that's an issue because brands are not going to get involved with a scene that is consistently coming out with racial issues. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last. And it just pisses me off that it's still a thing in 2019. And the same way that sexism is still a thing in local scenes. Like, why are we still having to deal with this as a common issue? It's not rare. It's not a once-off thing. It is a constant common thing that no one seems to want to tackle or address seriously.
So let's maybe tackle that with our two Dota guys. Between Snare and Kaameel, what do you guys have on this? I mean, you guys saw what was said. I mean, if you want to repeat some of it, you can. I don't know, but
I mean,
you want to go first?
Let me actually tell you an interesting story about this kind of thing, right? So there was a point. So for several reasons, I stopped playing Dota as much as I did several months ago. It wasn't just necessarily because of the community. The community was involved, but mostly the problem was me, right? I was casting too much Dota, and I was burnt out. I was tired of the game. Just things weren't really working out with the game, right? And I decided to chill. I let this go, and I was still casting on and off, but I wasn't playing the game at all. 0% playtime for about 3 months. And then one of my homies is like, dude, come back, play the game. You know, people have cooled down. A lot of people have moved to Europe, whatever it is, dude, just come hang out. And I'm like, you know what? It's chilled. Let me come play some Dota. Actually, no, that wasn't the first game. The first game I played was with Kaameel. Remember that game we played, after we finished casting a game? The one we were beefing with a player.
Yeah, I remember.
about what do we do? About AOC, but whatever. That's another story. So anyway, the next day I come back, I'm playing Dota. And so we're losing this game. It's going really south, this new game that we're playing the next day. Obviously, I don't have any people that are 7-8K players around me to help me out. You know, they're carrying my badass. So I'm really bad at the game now. Crap, I'm out of practice. It is what it is. And then towards the end of the game, right, literally as our throne is falling, our mid laner's like, oh, this is why I don't like playing with Guffers. And I was like, seriously, dog. Like, come on, guys. Like, I just got back. Let me just settle in for a while. You know, become comfortable before you remind me that this is what the scene is like. Whatever. Actually, I'm out. I don't really care anymore. It's one of the biggest reasons why I stopped playing Dota locally was because this just had to be the case. It's just the fact that this is so normalized, right? And I was talking to Kaameel about this, right? And regrettably, we're not going to put any names on blast, but both of us had to sit there and say, as messed up as it is, what ACG said, I could honestly not think of like more than 6-7 names within the entire scene who I could absolutely trust to never do such a thing. Everyone else would be like, I don't know, this is actually not that much of a surprise. It's disappointing, but it's not surprising. It's just like, oh, you know, it's kind of finding out that that really creepy dude in your class has hemorrhoids. It's not really a surprise, but, you know, it still sucks to find out. Still terrible information.
I just always think, like, if your first reaction, you know, of anger in a game is racism or sexism or anything, anti-Semitism, it says more something about you than anything else. Like, normal people would punch their table or their keyboard, hello Mark, or swear. It's very easy to just be like, and do either swear at the person, swear at the room, like I do, you know, just release it into the world, rather than just immediately go and say some kind of racial slur at somebody because you are an absolute twat.
Yeah, because I also don't get it. It's like, how does this appropriately convey to me that I should feel bad given that you're angry?
And
like,
also,
this doesn't do anything.
It's also, and I just always feel like whenever this comes out, it's they're sorry they got caught. That's it.
Oh yeah, of course.
But because it's so ingrained. Why is Glenn in two places?
Kage bunshi no jutsu.
It's always like that's when it comes out. But you know, before you're clapping it, you're saying it wherever you want, in public games, in front of people who can see your name and your account and everything. And then afterwards, when somebody calls you out on it in a public forum, you're like, "Whoops, I said it because I'm angry." Right. Well, even then, that's not an excuse. It's wrong.
And it's still lazy racism, like we were talking about before. You know, come on, guys.
Not creative.
Be creative. You know, make me really appreciate that racism. I should feel afterwards, just be like, I'm offended, but that was some poetry, man. Like, shit, well done. Like,
this is I was talking about, like, you know, when I last played a game of Dota, and of course it was Dota on the EU servers that gave me that, like, really creative racism. See, I'm like moving out of the way.
You're in.
Like, sort of, I was playing this game, and then like this Russian player was just like, "Fuck Obama," and I'm like, "Whoa, this person knows I'm black." Like,
how do they know?
Turns out he just heard me speak English and thought I was American, and that's why he went and attacked, the American president at the time. So I was like, you know what? Actually, props to you, because like that was really just creative. Like you just went and attacked a president just based on like, it wasn't even racial. It was just basically like you're American.
The language.
And I can appreciate that. Like, be creative with your.
Listen, Russians are the absolute like. They don't give no fucks when it comes
EU
to like.
In general, I think across all the games, EU players are so good at actually just being creative with how much they hate each other. Like,
yeah, something to admire.
With like attacking each other is the Korean scene. Because apparently in Korea, like obviously because there everything's linked to your sort of, their version of the social identity number, they'll say things like, your mother makes really good food. And really what they're saying is like, fuck your mother, right?
Been there.
Like, let's be creative about how we're going to do it.
Exactly. Be extra.
And then also bear the consequences.
I mean, of course, take the L.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can be funny enough that we're like, listen, dog, what you said was really messed up. You're still gonna take this L, but we'll let you back into normal society a little bit faster because that shit was just hilarious.
Bonus points for funny racism. But like back to the ACG thing, it's like again, I spoke to Snare earlier about this, and I was like, neither of us are surprised when we see this, right? And if you do a simple thing like log on to Dota 2 SA, almost once a week you see a screenshot. Is it daily? Probably daily at this point. I stopped checking the group because it's so fucking toxic. But every day you see a screenshot of racist, like a super racist comment, like K-word this or Pura scum must die or some shit like that. And then there's 100 comments in there. And sure, credit to some of the peeps. They're like, you know what, bro? This is not cool. Let's go report this guy's Steam ID or some shit. But overwhelmingly, the response is, oh, why are you moaning about it? It's just a game, bro. It's just a fucking game. And listen, racism is not a game. And plus, it's an issue that goes way beyond just ACG and SA Dota, of course. But, like, it's important that we not, like, I have nothing personal against Chad. I honestly think as a player, he's probably done more good for the South African scene than many other, probably top 3 in the last 2 years. I would give him that much credit. Brought Face It to SA. He's done a lot of good shit. But at the same time, we can't have an esports scene. And I spoke about a similar thing on the Rick Fox story, where that has a tolerance for racism. You have to have a zero tolerance policy. You don't want to be like football, where you see like, Suarez, but the guy, he called this guy a K-word and this racial slur. But you know what? He's Luis Suarez. Let's give him a $15,000 fine and let Barcelona play, Nah, dog. Nah. If we look in Dota 2, we see there's 2 instances of racism that came through. Skembelu and Cuckoo. And you can ask Snare what happened to both those 2 guys. They got fucked. One got kicked from his org immediately and can't find the team anymore because of the racist brand he has. And 2, Cuckoo got banned. Okay, firstly, that was a bit of a more complicated one because there was lies and other shit going on when they made the press release. And Valve had to cover their own bases because they didn't want to admit this is still conspiracy theory and alleged, but the Chinese government told them this guy can't play. So he got Cuckoo and his team got ducked 20% point penalty. He missed the next major. And that the Xiongxing municipal government banned him from entering the city. So like this is real consequences, right? And I'm not saying like this kind of stuff because I want to see Chad roasted and dead or whatever. No, I actually like Chad. But at the same time, I do not like seeing racism within my Dota 2 context, right? And it's something I have to see, unfortunately, playing SA pubs and EU ranked games and shit. But at the same time, in the esports part of it, in competitive gaming, like, this shouldn't be a thing, guys.
Look, and I think we should also give props to the fact that, Metal State actually did ban him. So he was banned from Metal State. And then he's also been put on probation. I think he's been suspended from his team. From the Syntech tournament is coming up. So, I mean, like, the orgs, the tournament organizers in the scene actually, stepped up quite quickly and made a very strong statement to that. So definitely props to that.
Yeah, and I heard his team APG dropped the roster almost immediately.
Okay. So that's
so there was consequences for Chad. It's great to see that shit, by the way.
Yeah. And I just think at the end of he's owned up to his mistakes, and he said, I'm sorry. And again, there's an argument of also, maybe he's sorry that he got caught, not so much sorry for what he did. But I just think it just highlights an issue that is, for me, such a problem in the scene locally. is just the idea of racism and the fact that it's so blasé. It's not a thing until someone makes it a thing. And I've seen before in Facebook groups of different esports games where someone brings it up, and again, like Kaameel, like you were saying, people just go like, "Dude, it's just a game. Like,
relax.
shut the fuck up. Like, you know,
Yeah, it's so
bring
easy.
on your big boy pants. Like, what?
Like-
Fuck, no.
As a guy named John Stockton or some shit, just looking at that thing like, oh, but why is the K word a problem?
No.
It's not a problem for you, motherfucker.
It's gonna be some
Like,
guy
holy
named
shit.
some guy who's like, Juju's coming for my farm. I'm ready for with a rifle. Talking
big
trash
issue.
about how saying,
Ooh.
nah, the K word isn't an issue in my games, man. Why do you guys? Why are you snowflakes also triggered? You know, you guys need to calm down, understand that it's just a game. And you're like, well, okay, it's just a game, but then why if it's just a game for both of us, why do you just get to enjoy the game and I have to enjoy the game plus bullshit all the time?
Exactly.
Yeah, man, like to bring it back to sport, if you would have that on a field of anything, it would be completely unacceptable. That would be it. You'd be off.
Nah,
It's just-
I know that sport analogy is garbage. Sportsmen have done way
Really?
worse things than drop K. Dude, Luis Suarez, he's bit players like 4
Dad,
times. He's
I'm
dropped
talking
racist
about-
slurs.
I'm
He's
talking about
racist
real
so much
sports.
shit.
The true shots fired. Okay, listen, Kaameel. You know, I'm with her on the Suarez thing. Just because Suarez's one was 1% funny, it's really funny to like, dude, you just bite me on the ear while we're playing football.
Nobody also made racial slurs to Patrice Evra. Like,
No.
Yeah, no, that's messed up. Yeah, that one is
football,
100%.
the fans chant racist shit. Football is an animal sport, okay?
Yeah, it's really
and,
messed up.
and like one of the players, Raheem Sterling was saying, like he thinks like the slap on the wrist shit doesn't work. He says dock a team 9 points for racial slurs and stuff coming on. We'll see how many times that happens. And the reason I sort of agree
I'm
with
down
that
with that,
statement
yeah.
is that when do you, in Dota 2 context, do you think anybody's ever gonna drop a Chinese slur in the next 5 years, Snare?
No.
fucking ways. And this because there was a third
That's
instance
not
of racism as well in the Dota 2 scene internationally this past season, and that was mind control. He said he wished Hitler killed the Russians instead of Jews in a ranked game on fucking stream, I believe.
Wow.
Well, maybe it was screenshotted. I might be wrong. And him, it was like also he came out, he made a good apology, written well from the Liquid PR team. The team,
Hey man, they gotta
made
spend
him
that CI
fine
money
and
somehow.
shit. But like at the end of the day, you got a slap on the wrist, right? And now people still gonna shit talk the Russians, man. But you're gonna shit talk the Chinese or the Chinese government to drop racial slurs. You know you're getting your career is ruined.
Not as an
And I think
official
that's a
player.
big difference.
Yeah, everybody else is going to be talking shit in chat, but you're definitely right that as an official player, that's not going to happen anymore. It's like the penalty is way too high. Like even after what happened just now with Chad, right? Although it's probably not going to clean up our pubs, I think for a while we're not going to see any other pro or aspiring pro players talking this kind of shit.
Yeah,
Like,
and the thing is, this is why I'm not like against Chad personally. I'm not mad at him, right? It's unfortunate it happened. I read the script for his interview as well. I actually do believe he's sorry and he didn't mean it, right? Maybe he did mean it. I don't know. Obviously, he has a deep sense of racism rooted in him. But fuck it, Chad. I hope you rehabilitate and you come back stronger, right? Props to you, man. But I know all you fuckers in SA Dota, man. I see you guys. I chat to you guys. The first game, Snare came back. We sitting in a Discord chat where guys making jokes about how all Muslims are jihadists and how he's what was the other one? That he's a victim as a man. Sure, it's funny. We're just talking in team chat. Nobody's listening.
Yeah,
I'm playing a game the other day where a guy greets me, "Hey, what's up, nigga?" I'm like, "You're a white dude telling me, an Indian guy, that you think that's like okay?" Like nobody's looking at it now, but you know what? One day I'm gonna see that and be like, you know what? I'm gonna screenshot this shit, man. Your career is gonna be done too because it's not fucking funny.
But Kaameel, but on that point though, and I think that's so important again, is like this came out because it was a public issue. Like it was a feud with someone else, right? It wasn't done because the screenshots didn't come out, or the evidence didn't come out because, oh man, racism is bad, we need to deal with this. No, it was another person trying to get back at him at chat.
Exactly.
Right?
And I was
But the point I'm saying though is that this stuff doesn't often come out because people feel bad about racism. It comes out because someone's going, you know what, I want to get back at you and I know this is the best way to do it. It doesn't come out of the goodness of people's heart. It doesn't come out of the fact that people are going, we need to stamp out racism. Like racism gets used as a weapon to attack another player.
I was so mad that day on Twitter. I know all that shit got deleted now, but I've got screenshots of all of it, mind you. And the way SA Dota reacted, everybody there taking the high road with Chad and acting like they give a shit. Nah. Exactly. I see you guys. I know you all have personal beefs with Chad and want to make him look bad. And I know how you guys speak. I play games with you guys, man.
Yeah.
Nah, dog. Nah. Not everybody in SA Dota is a racist. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I'm not going to nominate you motherfuckers as Citizens of the Year. I'm going to say that.
No one's winning Nobel Peace Prizes.
For just not being... Wait, for not being racist. Yes, you can. Like, you can win a Nobel Prize. You can do nothing and win a Nobel Prize. Why does FW de Klerk or Obama have Nobel Prize?
No one in
Exactly.
is going to be winning one.
Obama, I want peace running for elections. Can hire the president. I want all these countries bombed. Bomb, gone. I'm not a racist, though, you know?
At least he earned his Nobel Prize, man. I feel like if you don't have like mountains of dead poor people underneath you, you're not really deserve your Nobel Prize. But well done, OBZ.
For sure. And he had a smile on his face while he was doing that. That's respectable. There
is one thing that I do think across SA, or just in scenes in general, not just in SA, I suspect, this is more of a prediction that I suspect is going to change over time, is that as annoyed as people get when it comes to talking about this racist thing, and as everyone, oh my God, why are you always bringing this up? Why are you always bringing this up? You guys are making this thing happen. I also feel like, well, okay, maybe this might just be with me and people I'm interacting with, but it feels like a lot of us on the other side are like, I'm actually also tired of having to justify why we bring it up. And it's like, I actually don't care if I'm pissing you off. This is a problem. Like, whether you like it or not, this is a continual problem for us. This can, if it ignores you for me to point it out, mute me, block me, do what you need to do. But I'm not going to, it can't be the case that you get to live your life never having to consider this problem. I have to live my life considering this problem. Others get to live their life with even more problems. And all of us have the same level of engagement. Nah, that can't be the case. Like, something has to happen.
But to that point also, if it's annoying for you to have to hear, or for someone to have to hear about racism all the time,
you cut off there, so.
How much more annoying do you think it is for us having to deal with it all the time? Sometimes I want to play, like when I used to play League of Legends all the time, like I just wanted to play a game. If I had like a long day at work, gaming is an escape for a lot of us. And that's also one of the big things. Like gaming is a space for a lot of us to just kind of let loose and forget about
anger management.
Right? Like, but you know what I mean? Like if you've had a bad day at work and you just want to play a game, like your favorite game, and you just want to enjoy yourself, and it happens to be an online game, how much more exhausting do you think it is for us when you have to play a game and you're tired, you just want to switch off, and you have to deal with more bullshit? And you know that person more than likely won't have any repercussions. So when people go like, oh, you always bring up racism and you always bring up this and that, like, yeah, because it's exhausting to deal with it on a fucking daily basis. I think we'd all be happy if we didn't have to talk about racism or sexism or other, all those issues within gaming and specifically esports culture. We'd love to not have to talk about it, but here we are.
But all it really takes, ultimately, at the end of the day, everybody knows racism is wrong. You know that. We are hell. We live in South Africa. We are like the racist capitalism of the world. Yay. It's depressing. It's awful. But all you have to do is call it out. I play in quite like my casual games. I'm always like quite a mixed group of races and sexes. And when you play and something happens, okay, I'm guessing, well, not with races, but like what I would expect. Oh, are you a girl? Are you a girl? Are you a girl? For like however long, and somebody just says, hey guy, don't be stupid, don't do that, don't say that. Just one person needs to say that and kind of have everybody else agree. Then that person is like, oh, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh, this isn't right. And they actually do take a moment to reconsider and shut the hell up, and maybe the next game they've learned something and they don't do the same thing again. So just speak up, everybody else. Not the people who are complaining right now.
Shooting people, say, yo, what are you doing, guys? Just what the hell is happening? I guess there's probably a line that can be the end of it, which is, I'm just thinking something along the lines of, if games are escapes, like we're all trying to escape in the game, don't drag me back to reality, man.
Mm-hmm.
At least if you're gonna racially abuse me, at least pick a race from the game we're playing. Be like, you got like goddamn filthy Earthshaker. It's like, alright, cool. At least you're keeping it in character, bro.
You goddamn mage player. How can you play that shit?
Freaking mage. Like, look at your dark ass self. Then it's like, alright,
hero cancer.
Come up with a dark elf version of nigga and you can call me that. Then it's fine.
A slur is a slur by any other name.
Well, okay, so lots of things coming out there, and of course, I also couldn't talk because, since he's sitting here, it's required quite me to on the fly change all sorts of things. He's using a different microphone to me. We're listening to one set of headphones and trying not to get the mics to pick it up. So I do apologize if there was any bad audio there for a second, but I think we got through it. But the subject on the whole, though, like it's just one of those things, man. That I just, as Glenn said, you wish that it never was an issue. It wasn't something that was constantly coming up, but it is, and it is reality, and we need to talk about it. And if we don't talk about it, we're not doing enough to actually move past it. We're just, sweeping it under the carpet or whatever, and trying to ignore it. And trying to ignore it doesn't change it, unfortunately. So, I mean, the fact that we're talking about it, I think it's good. It's definitely not the last time we're going to talk about it. Maybe it's not even something we talk about every week, but we're going to call it out every time it happens on this podcast because it's just unacceptable in any form. And I'm actually proud of you guys that you were as mild as you were on this whole thing, because I thought you were going to go freaking crazy. So, it's terrible, and I'd say let's look out for that Esports Central interview with Chad that Sargon's going to be putting up. Should be up around the same time as this podcast. We can probably talk about it next week as well. But we'd love to hear what you guys think about it as well. Let us know in the comments on YouTube. You can comment on the article on Esports Central as well. So yeah, do let us know your thoughts, and definitely it's something that we're going to bring up again. Any final thoughts on that, guys?
Yes, he needs to apologize in two ways. Firstly, obviously, the sincere apology. The next and most important thing, he needs to now, he's already said racist shit. He can't take that back. He now needs to go and craft a really funny racist joke. If you're going to be racist, at least make it beneficial for all of us.
Okay.
I hope Chad listens to this podcast, and I want to tell him, like, you know what? Go get better, man. Like, you're going to deal with shit now, and rightfully so, but go get better.
And also to all the other fucks that you mentioned who do this shit and
dude, I'm waiting for these fuckers to slip up, dude, and then I'm gonna talk about them again on the podcast. Then I'm gonna destroy these kids, dude.
Listen, at the end of the day, there's also people have to keep in mind that there is legal recourse for these things as well. And if you're not gonna change yourself deep down in the darkness of your heart, then you're going to be made to change, whether you like it or not. So get with the system. Nobody thinks it's great. Well, some people do, but they all suck. So, just fucking improve yourself, man.
But yeah, there are absolutely real repercussions for racism. It's not something that you can get away with if somebody's actually determined to hold you to account for it. So, I mean, if you can't change for the fact of just being a decent person and not a piece of shit, then, you could get sued. So just to even think about that if you can't do that.
Pretty much.
So that is our show, guys. We appreciate you guys listening, watching, and seeing all the strangeness going on because the laptop battery ran out. So
I'll bring my stuff next week.
Extreme low-key making a...
But we made it work, we made it work.
A self-sale of his fucking techno skills. Like, hire me, I'm the Don producer up in here.
Hey, I host the show. I produce the show. I freaking host another person. I give him free alcohol. We got wasted. No, we didn't get wasted. We're quite sober right now. We're definitely sober. But hey, we appreciate everybody listening, watching, and whatever you're doing. Definitely tune into next week's episode 44, and that will be coming your way on the 30th of May, 2019. We appreciate you guys being here. Go to www.esportscentral.co.za to check out the article that we mentioned. Going to be coming out from Sargon pretty soon, same day as the podcast releases, which is Thursday the 23rd. You can find us all on social media. You can see our tags there on the bottom on the video, and our tags are also in the description on Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. We'll see you guys next week, or you'll hear us next week, one of the two. Cheers.
Bye.